Wow, everybody. I just finished an incredible interview with a shining light dad. Chris Ryan has a son across the veil, Sean. And Chris was motivated to write a book called Helping Fathers Heal. You're going to hear all about that and so much more about how men process grief differently, how they come to know that their children are still across the veil. But this is not just a program for dads. It's going to help anybody to know how to go through the grief journey and how to support someone going through the grief journey. So watch through to the end of this program. There are nuggets of wisdom throughout.
Welcome to Messages of Hope with Suzanne Giesemann.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back for a new episode of Messages of Hope. I'm so excited about this one. Well, actually, I am always. If I'm not, why do it, right? But my guest today is a topic that I should deal with more often. It's about men on the journey after a loved one passes. And my guest is Chris Ryan, who has edited and co-authored a book called Helping Fathers Heal. So even if you don't have a child across the veil, I know that Chris has a lot of wisdom to share with all of you, and his personal journey is definitely going to open your heart. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's great to see you again. I appreciate being here. Thanks.
Well, I love that you said to see me again, because I meet so many people, especially at conferences, and you reminded me that I've done a reading for you, and I didn't remember that because I do so many and I can't possibly remember all of them. But when we start talking about them, they flood back in. And so you were also sharing a magical moment that happened and how that reading came to be. But let's back up and talk about your journey and your beautiful son, Sean.
Sure, that I'd love to. He's right over my shoulder, both visually and figuratively and spiritually, I feel.
Oh, the goosebumps validate that one. Yeah.
His name is Sean Gabriel Ryan, and he was 23 when he passed from fentanyl poisoning. Very spirited young man, very independent streak, lots of fun, loved music. We loved going to shows together, and we had a good relationship. Of course, there was some addiction involved in his growing up, and that created its own set of challenges as parents for my wife and I. And 9 months after he passed, we were fortunate enough to be able to go to the Helping Parents Heal conference, which was really a big first step toward healing. It's an unending journey, as you know, but we really felt like as a dad, I was going just to accompany my wife. I was supporting her. I didn't really know or expect what would happen, or if there would be anything there for me. But there was.
There was. Let's talk about that.
Well, in addition to being able to connect with Sean through a really amazing medium reading, Farrah Gibson was there, and she did a gallery reading for the entire general assembly. So there were 850 parents in the room, and Sean came through, which was, it was so, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just magical. And when you're in a public setting like that, it takes your breath away.
Well, I'd love to know the specifics, because was this the first conference or the second one?
This is the second one, the one in 2022.
So when you have 850, 900 people in the room, how did you know that's your son when Farrah Gibson, the medium, starts bringing through information from a young man in spirit?
Well, she kind of knows where she's going in the room. So that kind of helped narrow some things down. And then she was talking about wild socks. Why am I pulling up weird, stupid colored socks? And that was one of the things my son loved, was those funny, socks with mushrooms on them, or smiley faces, or flamingos. And so we raised our hand, and then she came over and she went a little bit deeper, and that's when we felt like, okay, that's Sean. And then she pointed to us and said, "That's who I'm with." And so she locked in, and we stood up, and she ended up giving us some of the most specific and, mind-blowing. It wasn't just about he loved music. Yes, he does. We went to shows together. Yes. But Dad, you can't play the guitar. You can't get the bar chords. And that sounded just like my son teasing me. And then she mentioned something about a deck that we were just finishing building in the back porch. And I screwed up the finish and it was only half finished. And he brought that up. So he was kind of in a playful state of teasing, and people were laughing. And so we felt like, I mean, the room just became, I felt like we were just surrounded by love, not
Oh,
just from Sean, but the whole room was like rooting for us because it was so magical.
yeah. Oh, beautiful. And I love when our loved ones across the veil give us current events like the deck that shows you they're still here, they're still part of your life, you know what's going on.
Yeah. And it's none of that's on, social media. I really, my relationship with social media changed quite a bit after Sean transitioned. Um, because it's really pointless, trying to tell people what sandwich I had for lunch, or even if we're just smiling on vacation, it's like, yeah, we're smiling in that moment, but people might see that and think, oh yeah, well, they're okay now. Everything's fine. They're over it. And it just, so nobody could have found this information out. It was a very special moment.
Beautiful. Well, right before we went on the air, you shared another special moment in that conference that I didn't know about that happened with my beautiful friend and assistant, Lynette, who was just
Yep.
a guest on the podcast. So a lot of people watching know Lynette very well.
Yeah. Well, after your keynote, I was so, and it was just one of these things where you maybe kind of foolishly think, I'm going to give something a shot. I don't know. What do I know? I went up front, after the keynote. Again, it's the full auditorium, 800, 900 parents. And you had talked about Lynette in your talk. So I went up to try to find her, and I tapped a couple of people on the shoulder, and they were the wrong ones, but they pointed to her. So I went and I waited a minute. You were, of course, very busy talking to people. So I tapped Lynette and I said, how hard is it? What are the chances I could get a reading with Suzanne Giesemann? And she said, oh, well, we have stopped taking reservations. You get back in touch with me maybe in a year and just reach out, send me an email. And I said, okay, all right, thank you. And she said, wait, she said, how long has it been for you? And I said, our son transitioned about 9 months ago, 10 months, I think at that time. Anyway, she kind of tilted her head and she said, wait, I want you to send me your information this afternoon. Can you send me your contact information? And so I did. And she replied back to the email later that when I had approached her and talked to her, that she felt a, a nudge for the first time ever. She said she felt a little poke between her shoulder blades from spirit, and that was her signal that we needed to be, I don't know, somehow helped. And
Yeah.
so she was kind enough to put me in line, and I was very, very grateful. It was a wonderful reading with you.
Well, what happened when you turned around that you told me?
So after she said, send me your information, of course, I had a sense of hope and excitement. And I was thinking, thank you, Sean. And I turned, and on the big screen behind the stage, they have a carousel of children's pictures. And it, rotates about every 15, 20 minutes because there's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
As soon as I glanced up, there was Sean's face. It's the picture over my shoulder. And I really, truly smiled and said, thank you, Sean. And then the very next picture that comes up in rotation was your daughter, Susan. So they were together somehow.
Set up.
There.
That's what we call it, a setup.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I'm glad we had another good connection for you with Sean there.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. It was wonderful.
So you went along, as you said, to the conference to keep your wife company. And I know a lot of the dads did at Helping Parents Heal. And this is what I'd like to get into now, because the fact that men somehow grieve differently or process their emotions or the situations differently. What was your experience at the conference? And we'll get to the book eventually here, but
okay,
talk about that, please.
Well, at the conference, there weren't, we were outnumbered. The men were outnumbered, certainly.
But there was still a lot.
There were a lot of dads there, and there were dads wearing not only their lanyard with their child's picture, but there were also some big buttons that said, ask me about the dads group.
Ah,
And then there was a breakout session, a small room reserved for the dads for 90 minutes or so. And so I went into the room and I saw the co-leaders of that affiliate group. It's an affiliate group, much like the other Helping Parents Heal groups, except it's not geographic. So instead of there being a San Diego group or whatever, this is a Zoom meeting every single week, every Wednesday. And anybody can join. We have dads from as far away as Brazil and Canada and the US.
so this is
And
still ongoing. Anybody
it's
listening now is welcome.
absolutely, yeah.
It's called the
And
Dad's Group.
it's Helping Fathers Heal is
Big
the
Fathers.
technically the name of the affiliate group.
Mhm.
And in meeting with them, I thought, okay, I'm gonna check out the Zoom meeting. I did that, and I started to get to know some of the guys, and I got a real feeling that I could get along. Well, I could. They understood me. That there was kind of a shorthand in terms of being able to talk about certain things and being able to cry and being able to be vulnerable in a meeting where guys will support you and hold you up and say, "I got you. We're here for you. I got your back." And that doesn't really happen in the general population with most
Right.
of the. I mean, most people, yeah, they'll shake your hand and hug you, and they'll give you kind of the support that they can, but there's a unique type of support when somebody is in the exact same boat that you are. And so I found this to be very healing, and I found that there was a lot of hope in the group, and fathers were feeling better. That's why they kept coming back week after week. Every
Well,
week
I saw it when they did the group photo of the dads. All the women were just kind of in shock because you could feel this bonding energy. You guys, you'd found your peeps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like feeling like, okay, this is a brotherhood, a tribal relationship that we have. And yeah, we did. I mean, I didn't know most of those guys at that time, but I did feel being with them that there was a sense of knowing and laughter and lightness and bonding that had already been established between them. And I wanted to find out what that was about.
Wow. And anybody that's new on the grief journey might be saying, laughter. This is a grief support group.
Yeah. Yeah. We get together and we say whatever's happening. So we may have a good week. We may have a tough week. We may have an angelversary. We may have a dream or a medium reading. So there's hope. There's lots of victories. I mean, we're all looking for small victories on this journey, and it helps inspire the rest of us. Some of the dads still they don't have dreams of their kids, and I fortunately I do, and I'm so grateful that I do, and I feel like I've had some contact with Sean, but um, it really is individual. Every dad grieves, well, every person grieves so uniquely, but I think men have a particular. I hate to say that it's a heavier burden than women. It's just different, but I think culturally we're not really programmed to be in touch with our emotions as much or to express our emotions.
Yeah.
And there's also the part about being strong and being a provider, being a protector. So many of the men feel that they've failed or they let their family down. And then they have to also deal with siblings and, some of the other children that are trying to figure things out themselves. So as a parent, you really have a difficult role. And then as a man, as a father, there's additional dimensions to that. And so, but we have light moments. We can laugh. At the end of every meeting, we tell dad jokes, stupid dad
Really?
jokes. Yeah.
Dad and general jokes, just
Just, stupid puns, silly jokes that
yeah.
everybody can just kind of, lighten the mood.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
But what you said earlier really struck me about walking into that meeting and here were guys that could feel free to cry.
Yeah.
I feel some people watching this or listening to it, and some guys might immediately say, well, I can't go to that meeting because I'm not ready to cry.
You don't have to. It's not a
Yeah.
requirement. You just be you. That's the rule is
Uh,
you be real, be transparent, just know that you're in a safe place to express yourself. There's a lot of dads that are angry,
Oh,
dads that had to go back to work before they were ready because their boss was tapping them on the shoulder and saying, hey, it's been 4 weeks. Can you come back? So yeah, you just come with whatever you have going on and you're accepted. That this acceptance is probably like the core value or foundation of the group.
wow. And to know you're not alone is huge.
Absolutely. That's why the guys keep coming back every week, because there's a feeling of fellowship. And I have a lot of friends that have supported me, family somewhat, some to a greater extent than others, but no one has been as supportive or as understanding and compassionate as the dads in this group. Just because, you know, we know each other. We're so excited about the upcoming conference because some of us are new. We're so new in the journey. They're 2 years or less in the journey. So this will be their first chance to meet these guys that they've been seeing every week on the Zoom call for a year or two. So it's going to be a whole different, I think, vibe in this conference. I think there's going to be much more. And I know Elizabeth and Irene are planning on having a session for dads in front of everybody, not just a private meeting for dads, but I mean a general meeting.
So
And
that
I
more
think
people can
that's great.
understand the different way that you process this.
That's
Yeah,
right.
what you need. I love that. Well,
Yeah.
this seems to be the purpose of the book. That what do you call yourself? The editor of this book, the co-author?
Yes. And yes.
Yes, and yes. How did you, the title is Helping Fathers Grieve. What is the subtitle again?
So it's helping fathers heal
Oh, sorry. Helping Fathers
grief,
Heal. Right.
grief, hope, and our search for connection. So grief is what we have in common. Hope is what we benefit from together. And our search for connection goes both between the men in the group, but then also our search for connection with our children in spirit.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And all of the men that contributed, and there were 25. I mean, I was really surprised. I was hoping to get maybe 20, 21.
Hmm.
And it was so inspiring to have that many dads, even some that rarely talk in the meeting, very quiet. I
Hmm.
mean, you don't have to share. Some dads don't turn their camera on. I mean, it takes a while to feel comfortable, but even some of the quieter ones, that was, you know, a place where they felt comfortable sharing, and it was cathartic, I think, for just about all of us. It really was a process to go back there and kind of uncover what our feelings were at that time, going through the grieving process. What was it like? I wrote 10 questions out and gave every dad 10 questions and just said, look, you can use these if you want. But we'd love to know kind of a narrative, a story arc. You know, tell us about your child. Tell us your favorite memories. What kind of a boy or a girl or a young man or woman were they? Are they?
Okay.
Present tense.
That's it.
And um, and then, you know, some favorite memories. If you're comfortable, tell us about the transition. Not everybody got into detail about that, but we did ask them to share the process right after the transition, the initial stage of shock and numbness and fog, and then what has helped you, who was there for you, where have you found support, and what advice would you have for another dad who's new on this journey. So we tried to really incorporate their story and make sure their child was involved, which we understand the children were. Several mediums that I had readings with during this process told me that the kids are excited about their stories being told.
That's great. There's no
Yeah.
doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of those books where it may be painful for people to read some of the stories, and yet each one does have that arc that you're talking about. And I found in reading the stories this so much wisdom, hard-earned wisdom. But it was like when I read the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. You have these aha moments that we really don't think alike, men and women. There are a lot of ways we do, but to read your book and say, oh, wow. The one word you used earlier, Chris, for me was that feeling of needing to be the protector and the feeling of having failed or let people down. That was a big eye opener for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and we're blessed to be very much on the journey together. We support each other, but one of the dads said this once, and I think he may have read it in a book, but we all grieve not just the child, but we grieve the relationship we had with that child. So it's so unique for everybody, male or female, that, I miss the special memories, the special things that made our eyes sparkle when we would do something together. Those moments are the things that I miss the most. But yeah, feeling like nobody wants to feel like a failure,
Yeah.
but that is a layer that can be placed on people, especially if you're shamed by somebody. One of the dads shared a story in the book where a man that he worked with, his son had suffered addiction, had a fentanyl poisoning episode, which happened several times in the book. But a friend of his, they're having lunch, and the guy said just unthinkingly, I would chain my kid to a bed before I'd let him get addicted to drugs. So as parents, we tend to take too much credit for the kids that are doing so well in school. Yeah, I'm so proud of my kid. Oh yeah, they take after their mom, their dad. So parents tend to take credit for things that maybe they shouldn't, because every kid is different and they come in with their own stuff. But then parents can also kind of shame each other if they don't really understand what we're going through. And that's a tragedy. So that's why this is a safe place. These meetings are a safe place, because we all know that we tried our best, and that we hear that repeatedly in readings with mediums. Is your child wants you to know, I know you did your best. You did
Yeah.
everything you could.
Yep. Wow. So was this book your idea? It sounds that way.
I don't know if I should take credit for it. The first time I ever heard about it was during the first reading we had, which was probably about maybe 10 or 11 months after Sean passed. The medium said that my son was telling me, she was picking up that there's a book in my future. There's a book in me. And I had never thought of it. I never aspired to be a writer or written anything really. I don't even journal. But it got me to thinking, well, I don't know what I would write about. And then being in this meeting with other dads, we did have an affiliate group meeting with Elizabeth, and
She's the co-founder.
Mark Pitstick interviewed us. I believe I'm saying his name correctly. And he asked the affiliate leaders our stories, and we went in more depth than we normally do in our weekly meeting. And hearing these dads tell their stories and knowing, oh my gosh, if we could get into more depth and have them really tell us about their child and bring that child to life, celebrate that child, honor that child, that's healing. Feeling that you're doing something it's a legacy project for some of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's also a personal journey. It's a very deep, dark tunnel sometimes going back there, but then giving advice to other dads. So it was an idea that kind of came up from talking to the dads, hearing the stories, and just asking in a meeting one time, do you think you guys would ever want to write a story? Would we have enough guys interested to do this? And the first meeting we mentioned it, about 8 or 9 guys raised their hands. We mentioned it 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row. After a month or two, we had more than 25. A few of them fell out because you just can't get 100%. Sometimes things happen, life happens. But so I hate to take too much credit for it, but the seed was planted, I think,
Yes.
by
Yeah.
our children.
Yeah.
I
I was
think our
gonna say,
children were nudging us to help tell these stories and help
right.
other people.
And you mentioned there, just took a note. You said, advice for other dads, but I highly recommend the moms to read this book.
Oh
Just
yeah.
for the understanding of what things the husbands may not be telling them that they're dealing with, to really
Yeah.
understand from their point of view.
Yeah.
So,
I think some of the fathers went into an area of honesty that they may not ever really verbalize.
yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about journaling. Even though I'm not I'm an expert at that. But in doing this and in working with the other dads and in doing some research about journaling, I know that there is a certain brain synthesis that goes on when you convert feelings, which are often not language based, and you try to put language to your feelings. There can be kind of a healing involved with that. And you, as an author, Suzanne, you may be able to speak to this as well, but I think it was helpful for a lot of the dads to be able to verbalize their feelings.
No doubt. And now helpful to thousands who will read it, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
How about the similarities in the stories? Did that surprise you?
Yeah, yes. And in fact, I should probably say there's a variety of types of stories. And, I mentioned fentanyl and another father, but I mean, there were children who had decided to take their own life. There were illnesses, there were accidents. There's many different ways to slip through the curtain.
Yeah.
But some of the similarities were that initial shock, the paralysis that you feel, the sense of powerlessness, and just a lot of dads use the word fog or numbness, or just that the incapacitation that happens in the very beginning. And then the other commonality is so many of them felt that the group, the Helping Fathers Heal group, was the one place that they felt they were able to find real help and healing. Now, a lot of these dads, like myself, I've done EMDR. That was helpful. If you don't know what EMDR is, please look it up. Maybe it'll be in the show notes. I don't know, but it helped us get our brain kind of rewired and be able to sleep at night. But some dads do grief therapy, some do marriage counseling. So some, are on antidepressants. There's a variety of ways that we can deal with our grief, but this weekly meeting seemed to be a common thread that was a very helpful tool in their arsenal, their toolbox to be able to heal.
And how about the beautiful healing tool of knowing your child is still with you? How common was that?
That again, I use the word magic because that's a magic moment when you feel like you've connected with your child. Some of the dads have felt very vivid dreams where they felt like it wasn't really a typical dream. It was like all the senses were there, and I've had dreams like that. So yeah, that or sometimes a voice. You hear a little voice back there. And then sometimes it's with readings, with mediums. So, or body work, energy work, like Reiki or different things. So yes, I think that feeling that connection with our children is what keeps us going. That's where the hope comes in.
And that using that word connection in the subtitle as well.
Exactly.
Connecting with each other and with your loved ones across the veil.
That's right.
That and the hope do go hand in hand.
Really does. And I know that another commonality with the dads, and I think David Kessler mentioned it in his book, Finding Meaning, and he did it very well, is that giving a sense of purpose to not just your own life, but that your child is there. Men like purpose. We like to fix stuff.
Yeah.
And so being able to have a sense of purpose and to have our child's memory help someone else. A couple dads said in their book, in their chapter, if I can help just one person, then this would have been worth it. So we want to help other people, and we love it when our children are the instrument.
Yes.
That assists.
Honor them in that way.
That's right.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How about surprises that came out in the process of doing this book?
I was surprised. I was surprised that the response was as positive and quick as it was. A lot of people are saying it's amazing that an idea went it went from an idea to being printed in less than a year. And
Oh,
it
that's
was reliant on 25 other people. So you're like herding cats. You're trying to get everything in, and then you need to edit.
oh, yeah.
And these guys aren't writers. So you really, you need to work with them. So I was surprised at how quickly and easily it fell together. It just felt like it was a part of a plan.
And it's beautifully done.
Thank
Anybody
you.
can publish a book these days, and sometimes you look at a book and go, oh, they needed an editor. But you've done a beautiful job with this. It reads very well, it's coherent, and you do keep that same thread throughout, yet it's not so repetitive that each chapter seems the same. Each one, when I
Right.
dove into them, I was like, ooh, a new story, new teachings, new ahas in every chapter.
And hopefully you felt the character of that man, that the voice,
Yes.
we really tried to be protective or honor the personality, the voice of the writer, and not try to change things and homogenize this. One other surprise, I had a reading with Isabella Johnson when we were in the final editing stages, and she mentioned the book. She said something about how the children were excited, and she said, but
And
there's
she
more
probably didn't know,
boys.
right? She didn't know about this book.
She didn't know.
Right.
She may have known that I was in Helping Parents Heal,
Yeah.
because that's kind of how we got to know her, but she didn't know about the Fathers Group or the book. But she said the children are excited about their story being told.
Huh.
And this came up in a couple of readings for me, but she in particular said, there's more boys than girls in the group. It looks like there may be only about 7 girls. And she was just, winging it. But I went back for the first time through the chapters, and sure enough, of the 25 chapters, 7 are about daughters.
Had to be.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
great. That is great.
So I do feel that there was a across the veil conspiracy going on. There was a lot of collaboration, and I think that's something that the dads felt really good about, doing something that was going to make their child proud of them, and then also a way to communicate and have a legacy for the rest of the family and for descendants to be able to know, okay, this is a moment in time that we're immortalizing. It's written down. This is what happened, and this is how I felt.
Yes, and just in case any of you joined us late, the book is Helping Fathers Heal, and it's a treasure, truly.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
talk some more about your Sean.
Yeah.
How does he get through besides dreams to you? Any really cool signs that he's left you?
Yeah. See, he has on 3 occasions now, I've actually had kind of half awake, half sleeping vision experience with him.
Ooh.
Um, I've felt temperature changes. That's different. I did have that. That was the very first sign I got, physical sign, when I got back home from the conference, maybe 2 weeks after the conference. I got up early before dawn. It was cool. It was dark, and I was outside going to the spa to get in the jacuzzi. I couldn't sleep. And I walked around the corner of the house, and I felt like I walked through a warm pocket.
Mm.
It was just
Mm.
like I was walking past,
That was
a
me, Jack,
laundromat
I
with all
hear.
the dryers blowing, but
Yeah.
nothing was there at that side of the house. There's no heat source at all. And turned around and I walked back, and it didn't happen again. But I said, thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
But I have had a couple of times where I've seen his eyes will materialize, and then I will see kind of a 3-dimensional. We're not able to look at each other. And yet, and I'm aware that I'm in bed, I'm laying in bed, I'm not asleep. I know that I'm awake, laying in bed, but I feel his presence. This twice now. I can for sure know that it's 2 for sure. And I see him, and it's just like a blanket of love has been thrown over us. There's an immediate communication, no words, but just a feeling of utter bliss.
Mm.
And then the first time it happened, he turned and walked, and I followed him, and I wasn't following him. It was like we were both moving together. So I knew where he was moving and I could almost make him move. And we were like one mind. It was a very, very strange feeling. I didn't know what was happening. After a few minutes, 5 minutes, I opened my eyes to see if I could see him or see anything. And that's when it kind of went away.
Mhm.
And I don't know what that is, if it's astral travel or what if there's a word for that, but
I
it
just call
just
it
felt like I
merging.
was in a different place. He and I were not on earth. We were not, I wasn't in heaven. It was just like a somewhere in between.
Merging in the middle. Yeah. Yeah. Merging in awareness.
If you and Susan have had that kind
Well,
of
it's
experience
just
too?
how I meet the spirits when I do readings.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
Do you
just
see, do you get that do you have that sense of a three-dimensional
only
vision?
occasionally. That was a real gift that you had. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. No wonder.
Yeah, I could feel his warmth. I could feel the skin. It was just like he was there. It was so beautiful. So I feel, and again, not all dads, not everybody experiences the same things. And I'm very sensitive. I don't want to make people feel like they're missing out. You don't want to, I don't know, it's weird. You don't want to brag about certain things that you can do. I mean, you're a medium, so you do it all the time. And so there's a certain kind of, I have to respect the fact that this was a personal, private experience, but I can't overdo it, and I
Well,
can't tell anybody else how to make it happen. It's just something that happened, and I don't know how or why. I mean, it was unintentional. It just my son came and met me, and we somehow met in the middle.
it's not bragging. It's celebrating together
Yeah,
that experience.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sharing a beautiful experience. So how about advice for dads, both what you've learned on your own personal journey and the other things you've learned from editing all of these 25 stories from other dads?
Well, I'll combine some advice from the book of multiple dads that I've heard. A theme is um, some advice that came from many of the dads is find and stay with the people who are there for you, and don't waste time with people who don't make you feel good or that are not supportive. Um, I've had to really work on that personally because some of the people that had not been there for us were members of my wife's family, and we had been a pretty close family. My son grew up with his cousins, and they played together. We played cards at Thanksgiving. We got together at holidays. He would spend the night. So I just felt like, man, it's weird how how grief or the death of a family member can really, I hate to say the word separate, but it does.
Alienate.
It creates such discomfort that people think I'm doing them a favor by giving them their distance. When they're ready, they'll come and call me. And so, like one of the dads said it beautifully, the very thing that they're afraid of doing, which is hurting me, is the thing that's hurting me.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So the advice would be find those people who will stand there with you, that are fearless and fearless in a compassionate way.
May I
And
ask you to then say, what about those people who really do want to help you, but are afraid of hurting you? But you're saying, come to me. What is the best way to help you when they come to you?
well, I thank them for their courage. If they do come, if they do step up and say, just all they have to say is, how are you? Man, it's all we want. Or remember a memory, don't have the courage to say, you know what, one of my favorite memories was when Sean came over to our house and blah, 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 blah. If there would just be an acknowledgement that he lived,
Mm.
to say his name and to celebrate the memories that you have. He was a good kid. He is a good kid. We're no
But you're
longer
right.
making.
You're right. People are afraid that that's going to hurt someone who.
That's right. They don't want to, if you cry, I know that I did something wrong. No, if I cry, it may mean I feel comfortable enough to thank you and be vulnerable, and yes, sometimes tears can be my God, I'm just so glad that you're here with me and that I feel safe enough to be able to feel the love and miss my son all at the same time. And sometimes that involves tears, but it doesn't always mean that you've done something to hurt us. It could be that you did something to help us.
We have moments in this show where I say, everybody, if you're watching this after the live show, pause and rewind right there. And that's one of those that everybody needs to hear, no matter, dads, moms, parents, children, siblings, whatever. We need to realize that it's okay to bring up memories, that people want to hear about their loved ones. I talk to so many people that can't understand why people won't come up to them after somebody died. We had it happen and it hurts. It
Yeah.
hurts more when they don't acknowledge how much we're hurting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the name of your child is never brought up. It's as if they didn't exist, which really, that's so painful.
Hmm.
So it sometimes I have to be courageous enough to be the one to initiate the stories. And sometimes I cross my fingers. I hope I'm not making other people uncomfortable by saying, hey, I remember going to this one concert with Sean and we had such a good time. And this song reminds me of that. I don't want to be one of those people that is always talking about something that, is in the past and nobody wants to hear about. But if you're just sensitive and intuitive enough to be able to feel the room, feel the vibe, feel that you're with somebody safe, then yeah, bring those memories up and let that other person know that it's okay for you to talk about your child, that it's safe, that I'm okay saying Sean's name and loving something that, brings up a memory.
That is a beautiful point you made there, because there is that line where some people, that may be all they want to talk about, then other people are uncomfortable. But if we can work in our family members like we would when they're here in physical form, hey, I'm going to talk about what my kid's doing, right? And so you talk about a memory that just happens to pop up.
Right. That's right. Yeah, it takes courage. I mean, it takes courage to be a parent of a child that has passed, and it takes courage to be there as a true friend for somebody who's going through it. But that is just such an important transition, or that's not the word transition, but it's transformative, I think, for those around you, if they can remain with you and in that circle of grief and be safe. Just be a safe person for that loved one who's going through the ultimate tragedy. We just want our tribe. We want our people, and that's why these conferences are so helpful and they're so joyful. It's so weird to be in a room full of grieving parents, and it's a happy group.
Yes.
We're not happy to be there. We're not happy for the circumstances, but we're happy that we're in a place where we can all just take a deep breath and just be ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other advice you'd share before we end this time together? So helpful.
Read the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a lot of the fathers, they did do research after their child. Oftentimes the wife was the first one to buy a book and then passed it on. My wife bought, well, she didn't buy, she reached out to Joe McQuillan and he sent us complimentary one of his books about how he's connecting with his son, Christopher.
Yes.
And that was very inspirational for me. And then I went on to read many other books that it just let me know that I'm not alone, that there is research being done in this area, that this is not all hocus pocus, that I love reading the scientific part about it, that, it just makes me feel a lot of hope and confirming that Sean is with me when I know that I'm not alone and that, in fact, there's a growing amount of evidence growing all the time with more and more people being able to contact spirit and being mediums or having dream experiences. It's just the veil is getting thinner, and that gives me hope.
Yes. I mean, you just mentioned several of the E's. I have a new book out called The Awakened Way. making the shift to a divinely guided life. And it talks about the 3 E's to living the awakened way. And you just talked about the number 1 is educate yourself. So
Mhm.
programs like this and your book, Helping
Yeah.
Fathers Heal. The second one, experience that
Mhm.
connection for yourself. And
Yeah.
reading the stories in the book opens people to the awareness that they can have these kind of experiences themselves. And the third
Yeah.
one is engage those in spirit for yourself. So what is your relationship with Sean like now?
It's very similar to what it was when he was here. We have a sense of humor. And I hear so much from the dads when they get signs. Oftentimes there's a cleverness to these children. They send us signs that are in line with their personality and with our experience of them, our relationship with them. And Sean comes to me in funny ways that's almost kind of like a wink or a nudge, and it just feels really good. And I just love him so much. Nothing has changed. He's just not here physically, but I look forward to being able to experience what he's experiencing now. But I feel very blessed that I am getting a chance to experience him still.
And conversations with him
Yeah, I
ongoing?
talk to him. I
Yeah.
talk to him, and I thank him all the time for just little signs, little things. Um, yeah, it's just it's spirit is a magical thing, but we can't dismiss it because we don't understand it. We just have to have the faith that if we don't get it, it's all right. I just don't want it to stop. So I'm going to keep leaning into it and say, thank you. Let's do that again.
Well, wow. All I can say to you, Chris, is thank you for following the nudge. I'm glad the medium brought through to you that Chris and the other kids across the Vale wanted you to spearhead this book because you all wrote it together.
Yeah.
But a labor of love for sure. But it's going to be and already is so helpful to so many people. And remember, everybody, not just the dads.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I do think it would help the wives, anybody really, just to help understand what is it like.
yes.
You know, that's really what it's all about. And every story is different, but it's that difference that that the children bring that forth because they're so unique. So of course our grief would be unique. But yeah, I appreciate it very much for you having me on, and I do hope that people will find the book on Amazon. It's also Kindle,
Yeah.
and I just hope, yeah, if it can help a couple of dads or a couple of families,
Oh,
it's
you've
all
already
worth
gotten
it.
that check in the block. So now it's just ripples going far and wide. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
And thanks. Please give our thanks to all the dads who took part in this.
Will do. Thank you,
Right.
Suzanne.
All right, everybody. We just love having you part of our community. And thank you for joining us. And we'll see you back here next week.